And then we had a Hawaii, who was a chef. We used to make them in the back.
Because I had a background of my father was a shopkeeper in a village, and I was on and off, as a young man, and I thought I should start my own business. So I started a mobile grocery. I bought a van for £70, and I started my mobile business. When I had a very good start, then my brother-in-law came to me, Mr. Rashid, and he asked me, let us have a shop. And you have already a customer, and why not we have a shop? I said, what about if we ask that Englishman? He said, go and ask. I asked him, he said, yes, we are selling. I'm selling if you want to buy.
If you wanted to buy a shop on a lease basis, you were not able to get it because you would have to have a reference from some other source. You would have to have a business plan. You would have to show them that you will be able to pay the rent continuously. So it's less likelihood that you would get the shop. In fact, many a time they'll be turned down. Only the freehold shops, which were sold as freeholds, were bought by Panjabis or Asians, and then they wouldn't have to. They would only have to satisfy the bank, and that would be not so much a difficult maybe point.
Southall stands out because this is the first community, Panjabi community, which was large enough and had a voice, which settled in this town. And the voice was IWA, Indian Worker Association. That was the focal point.
Major role ਸੀ IWA ਅਸੀਂ 4-5 ਬੰਦੇ ਕਿਤੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਸੀ 57 ਡਡਲੀ ਰੋਡ ਅਜੀਤ ਸਿੱਧੂ ਦਾ ਘਰ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਅਜੀਤ ਸਿੱਧੂ ਮੈਂ ਰੂਪਰਾ ਤੇ ਦੇਸ਼ ਵਾਂਝੇ ਇੱਕ ਅੱਧਾ ਹੋਰ ਸੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਵੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਮਜ਼ਦੂਰ ਸਮੂਹ ਬਣਾਉਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਫਿਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਭਰਤੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤੀ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ 100 ਮੈਂਬਰ ਬਣਿਆ 2 ਸ਼ਿਲਿੰਗ ਦਾ ਮੈਂਬਰ 2 ਦਿਨ ਲੱਗਦੇ ਸੀ ਕਨਵਿੰਸ ਕਰਨ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਡੇ ਬੰਦਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਬੈਕਗਰਾਊਂਡ ਜਥੇਬੰਦੀ ਦੀ ਹੈ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਤਾਂ ਮੈਂਬਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਬਣਦੇ 2 ਸ਼ਿਲਿੰਗ ਦਾ ਮੈਂਬਰ ਬਣਨ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ 2-3 ਦਿਨ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਨਵਿੰਸ ਕਰਨਾ ਤਾਂ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਬਣਨਾ
The IWA was a closed community's own organization. It was like a family. There were no temples at all. No other community organization or group existed. It was Indian Workers Association only, which actually looked after the interest of the colored people.
It was a central hub to Southall, so if people had problems around not knowing how the law worked, how the immigration rules worked, the IWA would be where you would go as your first point of call.
And the focal also was because of the movie. That's how they established themselves. There's a movie every Sunday, and all the people around the surrounding districts used to come and see the Indian movie. So Southall became the meeting place.
In the early days, the IWA at Dominion Cinema used to hold a lot of cultural and social events, like Independence Day celebrations, So we would all look forward to them, because not only would they have like the political speeches about the importance of independence and brought to for other matters of the day, but there would also be like a cultural program as well. So local singers, our Bhangra groups, we were all so proud of our Bhangra groups. There were a lot of campaigns that it led on. And if it hadn't been around, some of the changes that were made to the immigration laws, some of the changes which have happened, the opportunities that young people have now, Asian people have now, wouldn't have come about had it not been for the IWA.
The Indian Workers Association forced the trade union movement to respond to their needs by entering as shop stewards.
Mr. Sardul Singh Gill became a councillor from the Southall Broadway. At that time, the Broadway ward name was Hambro Ward. and Mr. Southall was the first councillor from Labour Party.
Pyara Singh Khabra was the first elected Asian Labour Party MP. Both presidents of the Indian Workers Association, both rooted in the community.
These were all milestones for the people of Southall. This was what people around the IWA, this was the pressure that they were able to apply to be able to say, well, if we're living in Southall, well, then we should have a proper representation as well.
And I decided in 1994, I am going to take part in politics, and I took it. And I first 1994, I took. It was a bit difficult to become a member, selected member, but luckily I had a good chance, and Mr. Khabra and Mr. Sharma and Mr. Maan and other people helped me to become to select. In Southall, there is a famous saying, if you are selected in Southall, you are already a councillor, you are elected. So I was selected, and the election came, I won with Mr. Sharma and Mr. Maan, and I was the councillor of that one. That was my start from 94.
The men, the first generation men, get a lot of prominence and a lot of recognition for what they achieved, but that would not have been achieved had they not had the support of their wives and families behind them. I think my mother's generation in the early 60s were very much the homemakers. And the role that they played was that they kept homes going whilst the men went out and basically took up the political battles. I can only talk about what was going on in my own home, and it was very much the fact that my mother was the breadwinner, and she was the one who kept the home going, kept a steady income coming in, while my dad was able to go and fight his political battles. She enabled him to take up a political role.
The parents of white children, they felt very restless and threatened with the growing number of Asian children in the schools. And Education Minister came to Southall, and he asked about the opinions of the parents. Naturally, Asian parents, they never spoke up, but the English parents, they said, oh, we don't want these children in our schools at all. So the Education Minister said, I can't open separate schools for these children, but if you say so, I will send black child in every school where there's no black child. They didn't want to increase the number more than 33% in a school. So then the education authorities decided, let's bus the children outside Southall, but only Asian children were bused, nobody else.
Going to school, I mean, almost a totally different environment where I didn't understand any English at all. After a bit of time, for some reason, I got sent from one school to another. And I later discovered that the reason was that there were basically too many Asians in that one school. Because I used to see some white parents shouting. I didn't realize they were shouting against us. Later on, I discovered that they were actually picketing Beaconsfield Junior School because they didn't want all these Asians coming into that one school. That was a precursor for what became known as busing, as dispersal, which meant my mother had to get up at about 6:30, take my sister to a coach pickup point, and you know, almost 50, 100 coaches would descend on Southall, and they were dispersed, these Asian children were dispersed all over the borough of Ealing. Not one white child was ever bussed into Southall.
Dispersal became more serious by 1969-70, and that was the time that IWA and even that time I was working with the Ealing Community Relations Council. We put our foot down that we don't need any dispersal. We need local schools, local places and local schools.
Following the campaign, Then the Blair Pitch School was built in, 1 or 2 other schools were built in. So I think that was resolved.
Virginity testing was a crime against humanity. It came out of the racist immigration controls that were being imposed and were in place, specifically black immigration control. The immigration officers started the introduction of virginity tests with the basic underpinned by the notion of rejecting, making it difficult for female fiancés to come. They started conducting medical tests on Asian women to try to prove that they were not virgins, in spite of the fact that no medical examination existed to kind of prove virginity or otherwise. It's an emotional thing.
It is history that campaign was run. Demonstrations took place from Southall. 50, 60, 70,000 people in those days marched in the streets of London, and it was a great campaign. It was headed by Indian Worker Association. They played a big role. Then obviously people from rest of the country came over here as well to campaign, because this was against any human thinking. People can think of virginity test, and I think it's abhorrent, and people despised it, and people rightly stood against it, and finally it was changed.
मैं जब आया तो मेरी बड़ी इच्छा थी कि मैं अपने सारी दाढ़ी के सगे सब कुछ पगड़ी का मैंने शौक सी रखनियाँ अपने लैके आया ते रखनियाँ। वो जो मैंने बाजार लै गया तो कहते भी नहीं जान तो सारा वादा कर भी बाल मना इतने कम नहीं मिलते है जी, ते रखने तो फिर तेन फिर मुड़ के मना नहीं देने, इधर रहना पैना। तो मैं देखा 2 दिन बाद जाता रहा, 2-3 दिन, तो मैंने कोई सरदार नहीं पहला मिला है जी। 2 जिन्हें भी अपने वाकई मिले वो सारे उस वेला क्लीन शेव होए उसी जो उतों आए थे मेरे को, वो भी क्लीन शेव से। तो मेरा भी फिर 2 दिन बाद मैंने मजबूर फिर बनाने पाए। यही समझ लो कुर्बानी में सैक्रीफाइस, मतलब नौकरी की खातर, पेट की खातर है जी, एक कुर्बानी थी। पर उन्होंने बिचों में बहुत हर्ट सी पहला है जी, बहुत महसूस किया कि मैं इतने आगे ठीक नहीं किया।